Hey there, it's Shauna. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for May 14th. This week is all about action and innovation. We have a very dynamic set of transits for this particular week. I'm excited to share the astrology with you, and then I have 3 tips for you to have an amazing week. So first things first, we have a new moon in the sign of Taurus. And this is really cool. We have a lot of Taurus energy this week. So a new moon is a time of initiating new things. It's the seedling kind of energy. It's the start. It is the spark of a new idea. And so when this is in the sign of Taurus, Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So it's very stable. It's about the material world. And fixed means that it's about sustaining something over a long period of time. So with this new moon, it may mean new insight around your values, new insight around material things that you're building or creating. It could even just mean like a greater sense of exploring your physical connection, whether that's with your body or your senses or your physical energy. Physical energy is something that may come up, your physical vitality, how it is that you use your body, how it is that you feel in your body. All of those things may come up this week. And this particular new moon is exact on Tuesday at 4:48 a.m. Pacific time. It's exact at 24 degrees of Taurus. If you want to know more about what the degrees mean in astrology, you can check out my other video about that. I'll have a link in the description box. So Tuesday forward, the moon is growing in light, it's waxing, it's about moving forward into the world. So this week is a time of taking action, putting yourself out there, all of those great things. And again, it's all around Taurus kind of things. Taurus is about connecting with the physical earth, connecting with the material experience, the material world. The other thing that we have happening this week is we have Mars square Uranus. And so Mars is about physical vitality. It's about your drive, your initiative to do things, to take action. Mars also helps us to draw boundaries, to say no or to say yes, or to just really claim our own space. To say, this is my space, this is what I want, this is what's important to me, this is what I value, all of those things. And then so Mars, this action energy is coming into contact with Uranus. Uranus symbolizes changing the status quo. Uranus symbolizes doing things differently. And Uranus symbolizes doing things that are outside the social norm. So that can look like doing something that's different within the grand social context of your cultural norm. It can look like doing something different outside of what your peers, friends, and family think of as normal. It could even just be doing something different than is what you consider normal. And so what this could look like the whole idea of this transit is really about the title of this week, action, which is Mars, and innovation, which is Uranus. And so because this is a square aspect, it symbolizes where there's a little bit of tension, where there is a call to action. So this could look like wanting to do things differently. It could look like wanting to use your body in a different way. It could even be as simple as just doing a different kind of physical routine. It could be more dramatic too. It could be like feeling a desire to reinvent yourself in some way. And this particular week, this transit is important too because Mars will go retrograde this summer. And so when Mars goes retrograde, it's gonna kind of go over this same area a few times. So this is like the first pass of when Mars will square Uranus. And so all that means is that we're going to have more opportunities to experience this kind of energy, this action and reinvention kind of energy. And so I'll have more information for you on the tips in just a second, but what I will say is just the overall theme of this particular transit is it's very dynamic. There may be like a desire to do something differently. And if you're feeling that way, totally normal. If you're not comfortable with change, or if you have a resistance to change, this could be a little bit more challenging. And so I would say the more that you can be open to doing things differently, the more that's going to make this more easeful in your life. And the last thing that's happening this week is we have Mercury trine Saturn. And so Mercury is about the mind, it's about our thought process, how we communicate. Saturn is about devotion, diligence. Saturn is also about the facts of life, like the material world, the shit in our lives, the stuff, the things that we have to deal with, non-negotiable stuff that we can't, like the physical reality of life. And so when Mercury is trine Saturn, this to me really says that there's some kind of solution, or there's like, I wrote down clear thinking is what can happen. And so this transit happens later in the week. So I feel like this week there's a lot of energy. There's maybe a drive to change something or to do something differently. And I feel like you're going to have the clear thinking to execute that. When Mercury is trine Saturn, there's a more serious tone to the thought process, but it's very like focused, and it's very no nonsense. Like, okay, I know the thing that I need to do, so I'm gonna do it. Or at least I know the thing that I need to do. So those are the transits for this week. The tips that I have for you are to really make the most of this energy. So tip number 1 is to look at what needs innovation in your life. And that's to really work with this Mars and Uranus energy. So I'm really curious about where in your life something is asking for reinvention. Where do you need to do something different? And sometimes it's easier to look at what's not working, because that is oftentimes the thing that's asking to be reinvigorated in some way. Uranus is also about breaking down boundaries and removing obstacles. And so if there's something that feels like it's binding you, I would really look at that too. Like if it feels like you're restricted in a certain area, I think that's also an area that needs innovation as well. And so the caveat with this is the problematic side of Mars Uranus is throwing everything out and throwing away things that are valuable to you and burning bridges and that kind of thing. So I don't want that for you. I want you to notice, like, I don't want you to be hasty, because I don't think that's what this energy is calling for, but I think it calls for skillful and thoughtful reinvention for sure. Definitely a time to change something. So that's tip number 1, to look at what needs reinvention in your life. Tip number 2 is to consider your values. So this is the other layer of this, because Mars and Uranus can denote where we want change, and sometimes we can feel like we want change so much, it doesn't matter what change it is, just give me something different, get me out of here. And so I want you to consider your values this week, because that's going to connect you with moving towards something that you value versus just changing something for the sake of change itself. And then you end up in a situation that is maybe not really in alignment with your values. So I think that's really important this week, is to align with the people, the places, the situations that you value, that are important to you, and that invigorate you. That can be helpful. So that's tip number 2, is to consider your values. And then tip number 3 is to be open to new solutions. So I say this because I want us to also work with this Mercury Saturn energy. And so when I see this Mercury trine Saturn, there are solutions here. There is new information to be had, and this may, because it's Saturn symbolizes mentors, teachers, people who are more experienced or wiser than ourselves. And so, you know, maybe seek out guidance from someone who is farther along in the field or the issue, or has some experience with what it is that you're working with. That could be helpful too. So that's tip number 3, to be open to new solutions, because those are there for you this week for sure. So those are your tips, and then we're gonna pull a card for this week, and I'm using a different deck. Oh, my notes fell. We're using a different deck this week. So this is, I'll show you the cover. It's called the Illuminated Tarot. And I like this deck because it's actually a combination of tarot and the love cards, or the cards of life, where the cards of life, I'll put a link so that you can check that out if you have not heard of it. It's not as, it's a little more like underground than tarot and astrology, but it's a divination system using playing cards as the symbology, and it's really fascinating. So this is like a combination of those two systems. So this is cool because I haven't used this deck publicly before, so we'll see what card I pull. So this is just another layer of guidance for the week, and as always, this isn't necessarily what you should do, but it's the general tone of the week. So it's less about like trying to impose something on you, and it's more like what is happening, what's the vibe, so that we can feel into the energy instead of like not trying to manipulate it, but trying to like feel into it. Okay. Ooh, this is a good one. So this is the 10 of Hearts, or the 10 of Cups. And so this, in the love cards, it's the 10 of Hearts. In the tarot, this is the Wheel of Fortune. And you can see even it's like the wheel, and then there's all these little animals. So, okay, so this card is 10 of Hearts is about being in the world. It's about 10 of Hearts is like, symbolizes a person who has leadership qualities and charisma. The Hearts is clearly about the hearts. It's more about emotional connection, and it's really about a person's ability to be a leader in their community, a leader in their field, and to have like this sense of confidence and this sense of pride, and also this sense of generosity as well. That's the word I was looking for, generosity. And then the Wheel of Fortune symbolizes, not the Wheel of Fortune, is that the wheel? Fuck, I can't remember what it is. But it's the Wheel of Life, the Wheel of Fortune, etc. In the tarot, that's really about things being kind of out of our control in certain ways. You know, sometimes things happen and we don't always plan them. I think that's very appropriate for Mars-Uranus, because Uranus is also associated with surprises and things just happening out of the blue, often in a positive way, but so out of the blue to where you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this was going to happen. And so, I see this card as like a reminder to embrace those surprises and to know that the wheel is always going around. Like, there's really no ending and beginning. Every single circumstance, whether that's an ending or a beginning, that is just within the loop of life, and life goes on, and good things happen, bad things happen, but there's always something that leads to something else. And so that's what I'll say about that. So that's your horoscope for the week. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please share it with a friend who you think would enjoy it as well. And if you want to connect with me more, you can find more of me on Neo Feminine TV. That is a weekly live broadcast and podcast that I do every single Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And it's on YouTube and iTunes. I'll have information below on that. And if you want to connect with me more, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube under Neo Feminine Astrology. And then finally, if you are interested in working with me, if you want to hash out some stuff with your astrology and work one-on-one, I have information about that on my website under neofemininetv.fireside.fm. So that's all for this week. Until next time, I'm sending you lots of love. I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you soon. Namaste.